several days before we get to see these documents. There is a process of redaction taking place, and that is essentially the blacking out of certain lines that contain sensitive and confidential information relating to Mr. Trump. But then the documents will be made public for everyone to see. Of course, hugely anticipated, really, ever since 2016, when Donald Trump stood for the presidency for the first time and refused to release his tax returns, and ever since then, to the point of going to the Supreme Court with a legal challenge to try to keep them private. That failed, and now he has lost that battle. So it remains to be seen, probably in the next couple of days, exactly what those documents contain. And people looking to see if it reveals any information about Mr. Trump's wealth, if it reveals anything interesting about his financial dealings, perhaps overseas, Russia in particular, or any methods, and this term creative accounting has been used several times, what methods he and his accountants have used to pay as little tax as possible. All will be revealed eventually, and in terms of the political consequences, I think it's ultimately going to depend on how Americans react to what they see and hear about how Donald Trump has operated over the last few years, and whether that is going to influence them in terms of whether he should be in the White House again.
Okay, his first 2 years in office. In fact, they did not begin to audit them until the same day that the committee requested copies of his returns back in 2019.
Why did the IRS not do this? Is this the fault of former President Trump or the IRS?
To be determined right now. I mean, the IRS is renowned for being understaffed. My friends over at ProPublica have done several articles talking about just the returns that American taxpayers could get if we invested in more IRS auditors. But Trump also did have the IRS for a significant part of his administration. So we really don't know the answer to that yet.
You had a timeline of the House Ways and Means Committee's journey to get these documents until 2020. Can you give us a brief walkthrough of that?
Yeah, sure. So the Democrats took control of the House in January 2019. So we are now almost 4 years later that they finally got these copies. And it was known up front that this was something they'd be searching for, but they requested them. Mnuchin refused. They subpoenaed. Mnuchin refused. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. The court said yes. There were many times, though, that the Democrats, specifically Richie Neal, the Democrat of Massachusetts, who chairs the Ways and Means Committee, could have pushed this a little bit faster than he did. A lot of times he waited to file a subpoena, like Trump or the Trump or the Treasury Department would miss a deadline, and he just, let's give him some more time. And that's part of the reason why we're here now, where the Democrats only have control of the House for a couple more weeks, and here we are getting the documents right now, and it's kind of a rush. Can they get them out? Because as soon as the Republicans take control, this investigation is going to stop.
Donald Trump's tax returns are about to be made public, something the former president tried to block for years. Here's Los Angeles Bureau Chief Tom Walters.
6 years worth of Donald Trump's tax returns are on their way into the spotlight of public scrutiny.
I have 24 yays, 16 noes.
After a 3-year legal fight, the House Ways and Means Committee voted along party lines last night to release his returns. It's already been reported that there were a dozen years when Trump paid no federal tax at all, something he's even bragged about.
I have legally used the tax laws to my benefit. I have brilliantly used those laws.
But in 2020, at least, he paid no tax because he claimed huge losses. Republicans say releasing his returns sets a dangerous precedent.
Action is that the seemingly never-ending saga of Trump's tax returns appears to be coming to an end, or at least the end is in sight. This, as you know, has been a years-long pursuit in multiple forums, multiple ways. They've been trying to pry these tax returns out of Donald Trump, and it looks like they finally succeeded, and these returns are going to become public probably within the next 48 hours or so.
So now it's leaking out. Media is quoting anonymous tax lawyers in Congress saying there are dozens of dubious deductions, private jet expenses, charitable deductions that look doubtful, payments to the former president's children, nearly $127 million in write-offs over 5 years tied to an entity that didn't appear to be selling anything. This coverage said he paid no income tax during his last year as president. He took no salary for 3.5 years. You know, he made $11 million almost in interest from investments, but then he had big losses from his real estate businesses. But Congress wrote the laws allowing him to do that, right?
Yeah, and look, there's nothing illegal about taking deductions. You know, you're entitled to minimize your taxes through all legal means. I think what's interesting about this situation, Liz, is that by putting these tax returns out publicly, they're basically going to be crowdsourcing an audit, where you can imagine that all sorts of tax professionals and people are going to be looking over the former president's returns with a fine-tooth comb, basically saying, should he have taken this deduction? Should he have recognized this business loss? So this may just be the start of a debate that will play out over the weeks and months ahead as everyone scrutinizes what's in those returns.
Well, I mean, MSNBC, their whole MO is to have this niche of the country, this corner of the country that only wants to talk about Trump. Everybody knows the Capitol riots were awful and should never happen again. But they're gonna live on that for years. And for all of Biden's talk about paying your fair share and touting, you know, Medicare, from 2017 to 2018, he and the First Lady avoided paying an estimated $500,000 in Medicare payroll and Obamacare taxes on more than $13 million in income they got. They housed that in S corporation tax shelters instead of reporting that as wage income, Tom. I mean, Obama-Biden's budget plan tried to get rid of the exact same loophole that Biden exploited. Let's watch Biden here. Watch this.
Pay your fair share. Pay your fair share.
It's time to be patriotic, Kate. Time to jump in, time to be part of the deal, time to help get America out of the rut. And I'm not calling these guys un-American. They're sound, patriotic Americans. I don't want to hear anybody play that game with me.
Okay, you hear more of the bullying rhetoric, Tom, but, you know, they did use S corporations